Happy Sunday, everyone. It's Pastor Mike Matthews for Limping for Jesus Ministries. I'm so excited to bring this message to you. If that stack of Bibles falls behind me, I hope I don't get creeped out. You know, Tower of Bible. Okay, that's my one cringy old man pastor joke for the message. Today's message is very near to my heart. I love preaching Philippians 1 a lot. I love the book of Philippians overall. It is the epistle of joy. When we think about the Christian life and what it's about, the short answer is it's about Jesus, duh. But so many pastors and so many churches make it about other things than the basics. God is the gospel. I want you to come to Christ for Christ. I want you to see that He's worthy, not only on Sunday, but on Monday morning when you're in that crappy staff meeting with the boss that you can't stand and the coworkers that don't live for the Lord and living all kind of crazy lives, and you have to make a choice to live for Jesus no matter what. Whether you're on a worship band on Sunday or you're at soccer practice as a coach, we are in a world that is counter Christian, and you're going to be tempted, and I'm going to be tempted to not live for the Lord. It happens to everyone. We get to the end of our life and all we have to show for it is a 401k, a retirement plan, big houses, big cars, but our life didn't touch one life for the Lord, then it was wasted. I don't want people to waste their life. So the message today is called "Don't Waste Your Life." I gotta be honest. When I was in my 20s, this sermon was easier to preach, but after 20 years of ministry, the last couple of years of my life, being in public ministry, going through a couple years ago, going through a separation and divorce while I was in active pastoral ministry, it hurt. I'm not gonna lie to you. The way that the local Christian community responded to me a couple years ago, kind of got me off my center, But I'm gonna say after all that drama and all that trauma, I can say Jesus is still worth it. No matter what we go through, He is worth giving our life to. So that is what today is about. Don't waste your life. Our key text today is Philippians 1:20 through 24. And I want you to look at, I'm using the NLT translation, and I highlighted the key verses that we are going to focus on today. Today's scripture is, for to me, this is the Apostle Paul talking, and I want to remind you that he's writing this from prison. So this letter is called the Epistle of Joy, and this is just amazing to me that this guy who is in constant physical pain, he's in prison for serving the Lord, and he's writing them this message, okay? For to me, living means living for Christ, and dying is even better. I like how other translations put it more simple. I like how the ESV and the NIV puts it. To me, life is Christ, and to die is gain. Okay, but here's verse 22. But if I live, I can do more fruitful work for Christ. So I really don't know which is better. I'm torn between two desires. I long to go I long to go and be with Christ, which would be far better for me. But for your sake it is better that I continue to live. Okay. So verse 22 here, but if I live, I can do more fruitful work for the Lord. Here, this passage ends with Paul talking about like he's going to continue walking out this life, no matter how hard it is, no matter how tough it is, for the sake of other Christians. He's going to help them grow their joy and maturity in the Lord. And that is what we are called to do as Christians. We are called to be the hands and feet of Jesus and help each other grow our joy in the Lord, not in things of the world. That because listen, happiness is determined by pleasant circumstances, but joy is determined by your contentment in Christ. Joy cannot be impacted by being in prison here or being physical pain or ailments that Paul was going through. His young protege, Timothy, when he was a pastor, Paul writes him at the end of the letter to drink some wine and not just water for his constant stomach ailments. Throughout the Bible, you're going to see people who serve the Lord who have constant thorns and issues. They just don't all go away. I know that it is popular to get online or preach a sermon that will say, come to Christ and everything will be okay. I can't guarantee you that. I'm going to tell you that it possibly could get harder from the world standards, but it's worth it. See, many water down the gospel to two things. Are you going to heaven or are you going to hell? And they don't understand, like, okay, if I scared the bejesus out of you and I get you to say a sinner's prayer, for us who grew up in the church, who know what the sinner's prayer is, if I can get you to say that and you call yourself a Christian, then I did my job. And then we see, now we see a lot of people deconstructing their faith. Here's why. Some weak version of the gospel would prevent it, and they made it about fire and sword salvation. Say this prayer, you get to go to heaven now, but discipleship didn't happen. Where discipleship doesn't happen, deconstruction is going to happen. Here's why. Because you're told that Jesus loves you. He loves you, and that everything, you're going to go at heaven now, and then all they do is, we're going to wait around for heaven. We're going to wait around for the rapture. But then they're not taught the core doctrines of the faith. They're not taught how to live for Jesus. They're not. So when life hits them hard, and it hits us all hard, life will uppercut you right in your freaking heart. And when that happens, and they don't have a foundation of faith, people walk away from Christianity because they were never discipled. They may have been converted, maybe. I think a lot of churches are full of false converts, and you can see by what a church cares about. Churches on the right are mouthpieces of the Republican Party, and churches on the left are mouthpieces for identity politics. If I drive by your church and I can tell that your church cares more about getting Donald Trump elected than proclaiming the kingdom, I keep driving. If I drive by your church and it's covered in rainbow flags, I know that you think you're saying your environment of love, but your identity is about your sexuality and what you do in your behind closed doors. You're not about the kingdom. So for me to live as Christ and to die as gain should be every Christian's goal. When you get to heaven, and people always turn the white throne judgment time about, oh, God's going to get you. And they do this with Christians. That they scare you that your Christian life is not good enough and that you could possibly still might go to hell. But that is not what that time's about for the Christian. What's going to happen is when you face Jesus, he's not judging your salvation as a Christian. He's judging what you did with it. And Paul tells us that we are going to be saved, but the works done for us that was self-centered, they're going to be burned away. But we are still going to be saved. So what I want to do for the rest of my life is to make sure that what I do is for the Lord. I want to make sure that going to church, Bible study, preaching sermons, serving the poor, the tenets of our faith, everything that you do is for the Lord. Because here's the deal. Here's what I learned about being a pastor and doing life in the church. Good things can become God things. The devil wants us busy and barren. He wants us so busy that we never really get to know the Lord. There's a lot of us who serve the Lord. We're hoping that the good works that we do save us. But we do good works because we are saved and we love Jesus and we want to know him and make him known. So I remember I made someone upset at my old church. We were talking about how to get Sunday school to grow. And they wanted to bring back these little trinkets that they used to give out, like medals that you would get if you attended church. Because back in the day, I guess this is church culture for you. Is you would get medals for going to church, and I was trying to tell them as a dad in my 30s. I'm 41 now, but as a young dad in my 30s, if you're a family and you have if you have 3 or 4 kids, even if you're a family of mom, dad, and one child, I'm not going to get up at 8:39 in the morning and come to Sunday school for medals. And what do you want me to do when I die and I get to heaven and be like, well, Jesus, I never missed a Sunday school. Look at all my medals. That's not what people will come to church for. People want real community. They want real faith journey. They want authentic relationships that will help them grow in their faith. And what they really need is Jesus. They need people being real about who they are, and they need people being real about God and not just throwing Christian cliches at them when life gets hard. Oh, God only God gives us what we can handle. No, please don't ever say that to anybody. God gives us what he can handle through us. Don't ever say God can only give you what you can handle to the parents who are watching their little child die of cancer. Don't ever say God only gives you what you can handle when you have been diagnosed with an incurable disease and you gotta watch your loved one pass away, or you lose your job. You've been trying to be a faithful employee and you are fired for no good reason. Christians, the best thing we can do sometimes is just hug people. I recently, me and my wife did start watching that family show Heartland, and we took a break. We watched we were hardcore streaming it for 13 seasons. And then for some reason life got in the way and I got busy with ministry. But we started watching again, and we're and I'm gonna get some spoilers here. So if you have never watched Heartland, you can skip by this part, I guess. But There's a scene in the beginning of season 14, and one of the characters loses his spouse, and her grandfather just hugs her. There's no words. There's no words being said, but there's a lot being communicated. And in times of grief and sorrow, us Christians can make the gospel seem silly. So just what I'm telling you is what people need is Christians to be living for Jesus and being there for people in real moments. So Paul is writing this, and I want to remind you guys, from prison. And he goes, and he's like, hey, I'm going to stay here in these current situations in my life. Yeah, I want to go to heaven one day. I want to be with Jesus one day, but I want to serve Jesus now. Why do you think, guys, when you're saved, you're not beamed up to heaven right away? God saves you and transforms us to turn us back around and go into our circle of influences for the kingdom. There are people in your life that God can only use you to talk to. There are people in my life that he'll use my personality and the way I'm wired to reach them. He doesn't save us to hide in a bunker somewhere until the rapture. Have you ever sat down with some Christians and I get why agnostics and atheists don't want nothing to do with us. Like if 2 minutes into me talking to you about our faith, and all you can do is talk about the rapture and wanting to get the hell out of here, what are you doing? We are here to preach Christ and to make him known among the nations. We are called to let people know about him. That's why we are here. And if you are someone that believes in the rapture, God's going to be saving people up until that point, right? Do you believe the gospel is going to be victorious? I do. So, yes, I'm going to be like Paul, but if I live, I can do more fruitful work for Christ. I want everything I do to be for the Lord. I love this quote from a poem of a Christian evangelist, C.T. Studd, who lived from 1860 to 1931. And I like the one stanza a lot. Only one life twill soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. Listen, homies. I don't care if you are a multi-million-dollar pop star. I don't care if you have 1 billion followers on TikTok or Instagram. I don't care if you are super religious. If it's not done for Christ, it's going to be burned up at the end. I want to leave a legacy for my children. For my son especially, I want him to know that his dad was here in this planet, that Jesus mattered, and that he after all the crap that my friends, family, and children have seen me go through the last couple of years, my whole life has been one battle after the next. But at the end, my mission statement has always been, for me to live is Christ. That's what I want my life to be. My cerebral palsy, my suffering, my trials. If I have to face persecution, real persecution, not biblical persecution, guys, not people not liking you because you have a Let's Go Brandon flag. That's not persecution. If you're going to be persecuted, don't be persecuted for your politics. Be persecuted because you love Jesus and you're glorifying Jesus in your life. Every trial and every trauma that God has called me through, I want my obituary to read that he gave it all for Jesus. Yeah, I was imperfect. Yeah, I was a hypocrite at times. Yeah, I always say to people in my sermons, yeah, I'm a hot mess, but I'm God's hot mess. Pastors who get up on Sundays and act like they're perfect. I once had a guy tell me that he has never sinned since coming to Christ. Well, right there you lied, homie, because First John chapter 1 tells us those who claim to be without sin does not walk in the light. We're not perfect. All of us are imperfect. That's not what I'm looking around for a cat right now. You see my ADHD kicking? Okay, so yeah, what I'm saying is none of us are going to be perfect in this life as Christians. We're going to mess it up at times. We're going to be jacked up as witnesses. But the overall witness of our life matters. And I pray that you, however imperfect you are, listen to me, church. The world's going to give you 1,000 reasons to give up on the Lord. Pain makes it hard to see your purpose. But Jesus shows you his plan for that pain. So, therefore, be like Paul and say, as long as I'm in this body, I'm going to live it for Jesus. I'm going to grow my joy in the Lord, and I'm going to work to help others meet Jesus and grow their joy also. All right, guys. Just some quick announcements before the message ends for today. We are going to bring back Bible Boot Camp in January with the Book of James. Sarah's going to come back. We've been working on some things on behind the scenes. In January, I'm going to start a new podcast episode where I am going to interview pastors in churches throughout the country who are spiritually healthy, because I think we need to see. People need to see that people do want God. People are responding to the gospel, and there are spiritually healthy churches. It bums me out when I sit down with pastors and they think that people just don't want God anymore. They don't do outreach because those people don't want Christ. And then they look around and they wonder why their churches are empty. Your churches are not empty because you're the only biblical church in the world. There are churches out there throughout different denominations who are loving communities, who are biblical solid, pastors who are spiritually solid. It's not the message that are keeping people away from church. It's methodology. If you're doing ministry like it's 1945 in 2022, here's a hint. That's why people are not coming. Okay, so that is going to be in January. I'm so excited for that. I'm going to be interviewing pastors and pastors who are leading congregations, who are growing their faith, accountable to the Word. And I'm excited for the first couple episodes that I got lined up, and then but for the remainder of the year, we are going to be taking December off a little bit. I'm going to be running my daily devotions throughout December, and I'm going to do a Christmas Eve message. But this week coming up is Thanksgiving, and we're gonna go on break with episodes and messages up until I'm going to do a Christmas. We'll be back doing messages Christmas Eve. So I want to encourage you, like the page, like the content. You can find Limping for Jesus on Instagram, on YouTube, right here on Facebook. But I pray that this ministry is helping you to limp well for Jesus, and that you are limping loved So have a great Thanksgiving coming up, and we'll see you again on Christmas Eve, back with live messages. God bless and have a great rest of your week, everybody.